Hey there, my name is Alex. I'm the Silver Mont. Now, a few weeks back, I made a video talking about my ideas for DLC Nightfarers, new classes in Elden Ring, Nightreign. Some of you guys had really cool ideas, and talking with you in the comments made me realise I still had a few ideas, and you guys had a lot too. I would say the most in-demand class, from, just based on those comments, is some sort of martial artist or unarmed user. But a lot of you were also talking about perfumers, madness, and warrior jars. And actually, the first idea I had, the thing that made me want to do that video in the first place, was talking to a friend about saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could play as a warrior jar? But I thought it was a bit too much, a bit too out there. That said, let's go back to the idea. We'll cover 3 more Nightfarers in this video. And in regards to an unarmed or martial arts user, well, if you had to design one, what would you give for their passive, character skill, and ultimate art? And of course, these are all fan-made. None of the things in this video are official, it's all just for fun. So let's start with the warrior jar. This is probably the most out there idea for a Nightfarer, at least, in these videos. The jar doesn't level up and can't use weapons. Instead, you eat bosses, and every boss you eat increases your power. In terms of scaling, obviously this would need fine-tuning, of course, but just as a rough example, let's say one boss roughly equates to 1 level. That would mean 15 bosses get you to the cap. But this might need tuning to make it not too powerful, but also allow for players who are able to clear out a huge number of bosses to be a little bit stronger than 15, if that makes sense. Conversely, you have the issue where at the very start of a run, you're going to be pretty weak, and you can't level up to fight a boss because you need to beat a boss to do that. So do we just start the jar off very weak? Or do they start off a bit stronger than other characters? I think starting them off weak is the way to go about it. Maybe you even start as like a jar baby and then you get bigger after you kill your first boss, or I don't know, that's an option. There's a lot of fun things you could do with a class like this. And whilst you can't use weapons, you could still pick them up, either for passives, or for throwing, or for just helping other players. And when I say throwing, well, maybe something tied to the skill. And because the warrior jar is so big, he would have increased item pouch size, acting as a sort of mule for the team, or just to stock up on throwing items. The jar would be perfect for throwing weapons. His skill would count as a throwing weapon, and he would be improved by anything that, improves throwing weapons, like pots and so on. He would have one moveset, and he can't change it. Just give him a full jar-based moveset. Like basically anything you see the warrior jars do in the game, that, but then expand it into a full moveset. But the jar's skill would be Iron Strike. He throws a jar baby, which deals damage on impact and lingers for a short amount of time. We could also say that there's only jar babies being thrown when the jar has no weapon in stock, or maybe if you hold the skill you can cycle through your held weapons and throw one of those, which deals more damage but breaks the weapon, or maybe it just drops it. I think breaking would be cooler. In general, I think it would be really neat if you just throw them. Imagine stocking up on a few legendary weapons that nobody else really needs, and then throwing them and breaking them for huge amounts of damage against the boss, like Archer's Broken Phantasms. And that's probably how it would work, orange, purple, blue, white, the weapons deal increasing damage with rarity and upgrade levels. Empty inventory, or you just tap it, then you throw out the jar baby. Or maybe it's a relic you equip that lets you throw and break your weapons. There's a lot of ways you can play with it. But moving on, the jar's ultimate art is simple. Remember Alexander's flaming Shoryuken? Basically that. Any hits received during the initial wind-up increase the power. I see this being the highest damage ultimate art in the game, as it has 0 utility, fairly low range, and so on. Very similar to Wilder's ultimate in some ways. So it's possible we would need something to make sure it doesn't just power creep the Wilder. Maybe a longer charge time, less AoE, less stagger, whatever. Stats-wise, the jar would be unique. He doesn't really have stats as the others do, as he doesn't use weapons or incantations or magic in any way, he just scales with his base moves. But I see him being quite high stamina, but low health, as he's a pot. As I mentioned in the last video, currently there are no Nightfarers with S rank in FP or S rank in stamina, and I could see the jar having S rank stamina. His huge hitbox would also make him quite dangerous to play, rather like the Executor's beast form. But I think he would be a lot of fun too. Next up we have the albinuric perfumer. I'll point out that the picture here is just one of a perfumer, and obviously we would need a cooler design than that. That's just to give you, an idea that he's a perfumer. Personally, I see something a bit like a mix of the depraved perfumer's furry cloaks and the albinuric's flowing blue cloth and silver mail. Anyway, the perfumer is a mid-range shotgun medic, you might say. I has unique bows, and he's like the long-range character for ranged attacks. Perfumer would have mastery of all mid-range weapons, smith script projectiles, which would need to be added to the game of course, and perfume bottles. He would have marginally more health than I, but less stamina, and maybe a bit less damage. Stats-wise, I'm thinking probably fairly average all around, but just as the Iron Jar would have the S-rank stamina, Perfumer would have the S-rank FP to fill in that kind of niche. He would be all about spamming powerful weapon skills on these close-range projectiles, on the perfume bottles and the smith script weapons. And you could, in theory, use some magic or incantations or whatever, but he wouldn't really have great int or faith for that. Character skill. I need an apothecary, or do you need an apothecary? Unleashes a fairly wide blast. A damage cloud to enemies, healing cloud to allies. Perfect to use on a downed enemy to deal damage, and to get allies topped off at the same time. And I think this cloud would either need to be very low down or quite high up, just to make sure that it doesn't obscure your vision, because that's always annoying. Holding it down just makes it bigger, maybe last longer. The relic could change it in some fun ways, like maybe makes it so it no longer lingers, it deals all the damage up front, but no longer heals. Just make it like a giant shotgun blast of high damage and stagger. As for his ultimate art, well, this ties back in with his passive. Being an albinuric who has a wolf companion, like the best gun turret spirit action in the base game, the perfumer mounts his wolf and moves rapidly for say 3 or 4 seconds, throwing out bombs everywhere, which deal randomized damage, like fire, ice, lightning, whatever, and give random mini buffs to the team if they hit the team. You would control the direction of the wolf, but you would be forced to move, and as for the bombs, those would just kind of go left, right, you don't really control that. And likewise with the wolf, the perfumer's storm sprint is replaced with mounting the wolf, which is large enough to fit your whole team of 3. Speed-wise, it could either be a little bit faster or the same speed. The main benefit here is that you can have the other players mount it as well. I think this would be a really fun and cool mechanic. Probably need something like, if you're within 5 or 10 foot circle with the wolf, you hit interact as another Nightfarer, you just jump onto it. But imagine all the fun applications this could have for navigating the map. Finally, our last Nightfarer for this video, the Mad Monk. The premise of this character is caster tank. You have incredible enmity generation, but your health and defense aren't amazing, so you need to rely on non-standard tanking methods. The Mad Monk would be probably high arcane and high faith. Starting weapon would be a light greatsword, which also needs brought into the game, that has a cool yellow flame design. He would also either start with a seal, a madness seal, or his sword doubles as one. The Dragon Heir also was arcane faith in the last video, but I think this character is otherwise quite different. Having effectively infinite poise, but low health, would primarily be used for certain spellcasts. I'm thinking defensive incantations used while the boss is looking at you. Because everyone hates chaos, the enemies would be more likely to target the monk than anyone else, although not always looking at him, just more likely. And if he hits an enemy with madness who is immune to madness, it will manifest another random status ailment, because most bosses in the game are immune to madness. Character skill is a self buff that increases damage and madness output and makes his flame head flare up with a larger fire aura for 10 to 15 seconds. During this period, you would want to pump out as much damage as you can. Being a caster tank, he does need some way to restore FP, so maybe we have something like inflicting ailments or madness damage restores his FP, or maybe this buff, this character skill buff, gives him, FP regeneration on attacks. Or maybe we include it with his ult. The Mad Monk's ultimate art would be effectively a stationary nuke, a nuke shriek. where he stands still and starts blasting out flames in all directions in a decent sized area around him, attracting enemy attention, lasting quite a long time. I see this being vaguely like the Guardian's ult, where the longer you hold it, the longer it lasts, but in this case it would last longer than that. It would be a fairly long duration sort of ability. The damage would be low, but you're invincible, and obviously you can just tap it to use it for less amount of time and get it back sooner. And you would almost certainly be drawing the boss's ire during this ultimate. Maybe for the duration you also regenerate FP, so that's another reason to hold it down longer. Nearby allies get a damage boost, but also build up madness. So this is 100% an ult that would need very careful positioning, and would probably make a lot of people angry if you do it at the wrong time or place. But at the same time, you're stationary, so they can just move away from it. This could be used to tank a particularly dangerous boss attack. You could use it when a boss goes down. There's a lot of ways I could see you using something like this. Well, that's about it for these Nightfarers and this video. What did you think of these characters? If you haven't seen the first video, well, go check that one out too. What would you like to see as potential future Nightfarers? And as I said at the start of the video, if you were designing an unarmed, like a monk, a fist character, what would you do for that? Let me know down in the comments. Until then, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and I will catch you soon. Remember to like every sin, comment every curse, and subscribe to Chaos, because Chaos take the world?